beyond the centenary. The conference organized by the Department of Philosophy in collaboration with Indian Council of Philosophical Research. We truly feel honored to be joined today by our distinguished dignitaries, esteemed professors, researchers and students. May I request our Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Yogesh Singh, Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi, to kindly grace the dais. I request Honorable Professor Nirmalya Narayan Chakravarti, Chairman, Indian Council of Philosophical Research, to kindly come on the dais. I request our Honorable Keynote Speaker, Professor Mrinal Miri, to kindly join us on the stage. And finally, I request Honorable Professor Enakshi Mitra, Head Department of Philosophy, University of Delhi, to kindly join us on the dais. I now request our dignitaries to kindly come forward for the ceremonial lamp lighting. We'll also have our Kulgeet played along. So, you can go for the ceremony.
Kulgeet will be after that.
After that,
along with me.
Okay. So yeah, I request all the dignitaries to kindly come forward for the lamp lighting. Now I request everyone to kindly rise for the Kulgeet.
जयति जय जय जयति जय जय ज्ञान का लोक अनुपम
श्रेष्ठ सुंदर दिव्य दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय विहंगम
जयति जय जय जयति जय जय ज्ञान का लोक अनुपम सकल वसुधा निज कुटुंब की भावना संस्कृति सनातन आधुनिक शिक्षा पुरातन ज्ञान धाराओं का संगम
देश की स्वाधीनता हित भूमिका शतकोटि वंदन
निष्ठा धृति सत्यम के मंगल दिव्य भावों का समागम
जयति जय जय जयति जय जय ज्ञान का आलोक अनुपम
भव्य महाविद्यालयों के परिसरों से चिर सुशोभित श्रेष्ठ गुरुजन कर रहे नित्य छात्र और छात्राएं दीक्षित।
सद्चरित्राचार पावन साधना संकल्प संयम,
नवल वैश्विक चेतना नव क्रांति संस्कारों का उद्गम। जयति जय जय जयति जय जय ज्ञान का लोक अनुपम।
श्रेष्ठ सुंदर दिव्य दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय विहंगम।
जयति जय जय जयति जय जय ज्ञान का लोक अनुपम।
ज्ञान का आलोक अनुपम।
ज्ञान का लोक अनुपम।
ज्ञान का आलोक अनुपम।
It is now my honor to invite Honorable Professor Enakshi Mitra to deliver the welcome address. Professor Enakshi Mitra is the head of the Department of Philosophy at the University of Delhi and a distinguished scholar known for her work in philosophy of language, particularly her engagement with later Wittgenstein. She has made significant contribution to contemporary philosophical discourse. Ma'am.
Thanks, Dr. Aisha. A very warm welcome to all the people present here, my colleagues, research scholars, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Mrinal Miri, and I invite Professor Narayan Chakravarti to come, and our Professor Narayan Chakravarti, who is the chairman of Indian Council of Philosophical Research, and who also happens to be a speaker in the first session. So we welcome you and greet you a very, great morning. Now, I was wondering, as practitioners of philosophy, we cannot ignore the question that why we are celebrating this Tricentenary of Immanuel Kant. Of course, 302 years before, this man, Immanuel Kant, was born in Königsberg, and he started very late in his philosophical career, but he actually turned the whole way of human thought upside down, literally speaking, which left its impact not only in metaphysics, not only in epistemology, but also in logic, in ethics, and in political philosophy. Now the question is that this deep impact is something which is inherently quantitative. So why are we taking this occasion of a conventional quantification, that is 300 years, as if it determines us to celebrate? Now, taking insights from Kant's moral philosophy itself, he says that it is we, as free human agents, we exercise our freedom, perhaps pre-intellectually, to usher the moral commander not to externally constrain us, but we spontaneously create this freedom of as if an externality commanding us and securing the moral immediacies. In the same way, we can say that we as human beings, we exercise our rational choice, our freedom, to turn passivity into activity, to turn determination into freedom, and to turn conventional quantitative categories into non-conventional, qualitative, intellectual paradigms of meaning and significance. Let us take this occasion of celebrating that human freedom. Thank you.
Thank you for setting the stage so thoughtfully, ma'am. We'll proceed to felicitation ceremony now. I request Professor Nirmalia to felicitate our chief guest, Professor Yogesh Singh, and our keynote speaker, Professor Mrinal Miri. Thank you, sir. I now request our Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Yogesh Singh, to kindly address the gathering. Professor Yogesh Singh, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Delhi, is an eminent academician and administrator with extensive experience in leading premier institutions such as Delhi Technological University, Maharaja Sayaji Rao University of Baroda. He has made significant contribution to higher education and research, particularly in software engineering. He's also contributed to national academic bodies such as NAC and InflibNet. Department welcomes you, sir. Professor Singh is widely recognized for her leadership and commitment to academic excellence. He has authored over 250 publications. We welcome you to the department, sir.
Good morning. Very good. Professor Mrinal Mitra, Padma Bhushan awardee and former director of Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla. He was also Vice Chancellor, Northeastern Hill University, Shillong, and former chairman, ICPR, Delhi. Professor Enakshi Mitra, head of the department, Head of Philosophy Department, University of Delhi. Professor Nirmala Narayan Chakravarti, Vice Chancellor, Presidency University and Chairman, ICPR. Outstanding faculty, distinguished scholars, respected delegates for the conference, invited guests, and my dear students. Good morning to all of you. On behalf of University of Delhi, I welcome you all in this conference, two-day conference on Immanuel Kant, our contemporary beyond the Tricentenary, organized by the Department of Philosophy. It is my privilege and honor to find myself in this august gathering, and I warmly congratulate the Department of Philosophy for bringing us together around the theme of enduring intellectual significance, Kant, our contemporary beyond the Tricentenary. It means 300 years have passed. And today we are remembering a person who was a philosopher, contributed not only on philosophy, but also for the science, for the development of science. The title doesn't ask us merely to remember Kant. It compels us to ask, can we still think with him? And in that sense, call him as our contemporary. After 300 years, to become relevant, to become contemporary, it is not easy. It means he was a very, very different, distinguished scholar who has contributed immensely for the creation and development of knowledge. I often think that every discipline carries its own fragrance. Same is true with philosophy. Philosophy is distinctive. It doesn't not merely extend what we know. It refines the very fact by which we come to know. That's why occasions such as this are not only academic, but are quietly renewing. Whenever I think about philosophy, what comes in my mind? I am not from your discipline. People feel, rightly so also, philosophers are very intelligent people. They are the right kind of scholars. They provide foundations to science, foundations to technology, and foundations to medicines. But if I think about philosophy, then immediately in my mind, Bhagavad Gita comes. I come from a small town, Kurukshetra, where Gita was delivered. I still remember 2 shloks which are still written on the railway station of Kurukshetra. A real philosophy. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir-bhavati bharatah abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham panitranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामी युगे युगे. यानी धर्म की स्थापना के लिए, अधर्म के नाश के लिए भगवान कहते हैं कि मैं हर युग में जन्म लेता हूं. ये philosophy है. And there are many things, if you ask for the scientific evidence, we may get, we may not get. Scientific evidence for philosophy also, like modern philosophy also. So what stayed with me was not a system, but a discipline of thought, above all, the idea of nishkam karma, that one must act, yet remains unattached to the outcomes of action. And this should be the philosophy for administration also, nishkam karma. If you believe in nishkam karma or you implement nishkam karma, then you are a true administrator. And Gita, which said, कर्मण्यवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन, हम सब ने सुना ही होगा इसको, कर्मण्यवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफल हेतु भुर्माते संगो सत्व कर्मणि, कि कर्म करने पर हमारा अधिकार है, उसके फल पर नहीं है. लेकिन अगर हमें कुछ मिल नहीं रहा, हम कर्म ही ना करें, ये भी कोई बात नहीं है. It means avoid inaction. That is true. Detachment from the results. Like, अगर हमें कुछ नहीं मिल रहा, then also we will not act. That is the bad way of administering things. It is our duty to act as per laws for the welfare of others. But you know, when I later came to Immanuel Kant, I did not feel I am entering unfamiliar ground. I am entering into unfamiliar world. There was quietly and somewhat unexpectedly a sense of recognition, a kinship at the level of concerns. Not because the Bhagavad Gita and Kant converge. They don't. But because both resist the temptation to reduce action merely to its consequences. This is what is Bhagavad Gita. Both resist the temptation to reduce action merely to its consequences. Kant, however, sharpens this concern into a principle. He asks us to look beyond outcome and to examine the ground on which our actions can be justified. He captures this depth of reflection into a line that continues to resonate. I would like to quote. Two things fill the mind with ever new and increasing admiration and awe: the starry heavens above me and the moral laws within me. It reminds us that we stand between two orders, a world governed by law and a self capable of giving law to itself. We can think, we are intelligent enough to decide which one is good. A system governed by law or system governed by self. We have many judgments also where the courts say self-governance is equally important. If you are able to govern yourself, if you are able to understand things, if you are able to discipline yourself, things will improve automatically. Things will improve in all walks of life. Because his questions remain structurally ours. That's why I believe Kant continues to be our contemporary. The question is, what can I know? What ought I to know? What may I hope? The second part of the theme, beyond the tricentenary, is equally significant. A person is relevant in the philosophical spectrum after 300 years. A tricentenary marks an occasion for remembrance. To think beyond in its, to resist closer, to remain is a dialogue. It is to continue engaging with Immanuel Kant as a thinker whose questions remain open rather than settled. But you know, like I come from the discipline of engineering, where we don't believe in open questions. We want to resolve everything. We want to settle everything. Otherwise, we will not be able to design algorithms. We will not be able to design machines and instruments. But yes, philosophy and philosophers can afford this, an open question. Without settling, may be true. So these two words are entirely different. Kant is one of the most important figures of the Enlightenment. He made contributions to both science and philosophy. He changed the face of philosophy forever. He reframed the fundamental question of philosophy and enriched the discussions of many areas of the subject with his discussions of space, time, causation, morality, duty, and happiness. All words are very important: space, time, morality, duty, happiness. Modern philosophy persistently goes back to Kant on all these themes. That's why he is contemporary, he is relevant, he is important in 21st century and in 2026. He said knowledge is not simply received. It is shaped by structures through which we think. We are not passive recipients of knowledge. We are participants in its formation. And the fellow never traveled beyond Königsberg, where he stayed for his entire life. A thinker who remained within a single city, redefined the very conditions of spatial and temporal experiences. His thoughts, therefore, doesn't move with space and time in the ordinary sense. It reshapes how space and time are philosophically understood. I would suggest the Kant's philosophy bears most directly upon the idea of a university, which impressed me when I was going through the concept note of the conference. It is written there, if a university begins to define itself solely in terms of output or efficiency, it risks losing what makes it a university in the first place. And nowadays, what is happening in 21st century India, we are talking about outputs, we are only talking about performance, we are only talking about efficiency. So this is a time to revisit, to take a pause, to think, rethink, are we in the right direction? Or there is a need to course correction depending upon the advices of philosopher Mr. Kant. So as Immanuel Kant reminds us to his reflections on education, a human being becomes truly human only through education. I would like to repeat. A human being becomes truly human only through education. The university, therefore, cannot be reduced to a site of instructions alone. Very powerful philosophy. Are we practicing this? This is a question. Our responsibility is to produce a good human being. Are we working in that direction? In our classrooms, in our laboratories, in our thought processes, in our seminars, in our discussions, are we giving any emphasis? This is a question which is to be discussed. So a university must not only produce knowledge, it must cultivate judgment and the intellectual courage to stand by it. It must remain a space where thinking is not hurried, where disagreements is meaningful, and where conclusions are earned rather than assumed. It means what? His philosophy is for a balanced lifestyle. Both extremes are not good. Balanced lifestyle, a middle path. That's why someone has rightly said कि जिंदगी में हम ऐसा करें, जिंदगी में हम ऐसा करें कि काम दोनों का चलता रहे, हवा भी चलती रहे और दिया भी जलता रहे. Not easy. Not easy, but this is what is expected if we say we have to and we are working for making good human beings from our universities. Education is a very powerful instrument for the development of humanity and human beings. Very powerful instrument. But can we design such instruments and methods, principles, philosophies for fostering humanity using Kant's philosophy. But otherwise, what is happening? किसी से भी पूछो तो वो बोलता है, कहते हैं ना कि ये ना पूछना कि जिंदगी खुशी कब देती है, ये because he talks about happiness. ये ना पूछना कि जिंदगी खुशी कब देती है, शिकायतें तो उन्हें भी हैं जिन्हें जिंदगी सब देती है. For example, Delhi University is one of the premier institution of our country. If we talk about the systems and processes, they are pro students, they are pro teachers, and many universities feel that we should replicate the models practiced in University of Delhi. Disagreement in one aspect. Discussions and debates are another aspect. But if we are not happy and always we are critical, is it good for the systems and institutions? Think about it. क्योंकि याद रखना, ध्यान रखना, जिसके पास जो होता है वो देता है. जिसके पास निगेटिविटी होती है निगेटिविटी देता है, जिसके पास पॉजिटिविटी होती है पॉजिटिविटी देता है, जिसके पास अच्छाई होती है अच्छाई देता है, जिसके पास बुराई, जिसके पास जो होगा वो देगा. इसलिए माय डियर स्टूडेंट्स, जिंदगी में देने वाले बनना, लेने वाले मत बनना. लेने वाले तो बहुत मिल जाएंगे, आगे भी मिलते रहेंगे. और देने लेने से भी बाहर आऊं तो रोने वाले मत बनना, क्योंकि रोने से किसी का भला होता नहीं है. आप तो यू आर ब्राइट माइंड्स ऑफ आवर कंट्री. यू हैव टू create a better life for others, not only for yourself also, but for the others. इसीलिए, if I would like to conclude, the best philosophy, I really don't know whether Kant has said or not, but Indian best philosophy is Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukh bhag. सबका सुख हो, सब खुशी से रहें, आराम से रहें, और किसी की जिंदगी में दुख ना आए. ये फिलॉसफी है जो कैंट ने कहा कि इंस्ट्रूमेंट द एजुकेशन, द पर्पज इज टू मेक अ गुड ह्यूमन बीइंग. उसको थोड़ा बढ़ाकर कहा यहाँ कि सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः. सो आई एम एक्सट्रीमली हैप्पी दैट डिपार्टमेंट हैज गिवन मी this opportunity to share some of my views. All the best for the conference. And because before coming to this conference, I was totally unaware about Immanuel Kant and his work. But I could get some time to learn about one of the best philosophers of the world. I would like to thank Head of the Department, Philosophy, for this invitation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those insightful words. It is now my honor to invite our distinguished keynote speaker, Honorable Professor Mrinal Miri, to deliver the keynote address. Professor Mrinal Miri is an eminent philosopher and educationist, former Vice-Chancellor of Northeastern Hill University, and a recipient of the prestigious Padma Bhushan. He has also served as a former nominated member of Rajya Sabha and is widely known for his contribution to moral philosophy and philosophy of cultural studies. Sir, we request you to deliver the... Yeah, sure, sir. Yeah, absolutely. Can you get the mic?
This one?
Yeah, he will.
Is it okay?
Sorry?
इसको बाहर निकाल, लैंप को बाहर.
Hello? Am I audible? Okay. Respected Vice Chancellor, my friend and currently the Chairman of the Indian Council of Philosophical Research, okay, Nirmala Narayan Chakravarti, and Enakshi ji. First of all, let me thank Professor Enakshi Mitra for inviting me to do the honor of giving the so-called keynote address to this audience. I don't have a keynote address. I have just a few remarks, not just on Kant. I try to relate Kant to some contemporary interests, and also to something that is neither contemporary nor in the future, but something that is, one might say, timeless. It has been already talked about by the Honorable Vice Chancellor. I would like to talk about freedom, and Kant's account of freedom, and the particular difficulty that Kant has about freedom. And put in its original form, it is necessary that, or it is at least appropriate that I put it in the original form, the problem of determinism and freedom. It is in this connection that Kant talks about freedom. Determinism and freedom. Causal determinism, if you like, and freedom. So, if causality in the empirical world is strictly universal, that's what Kant believes. Kant believes that causality in the empirical world is strictly universal. Then all events in this world, including what I do, my actions are in this world. So all events in this world, including my actions, which are events in this world, are causally determined. Human actions, therefore, cannot be free because they're causally determined. If they're causally determined, everything is determined. Nothing is free. No freedom in the world of space and time. No room for moral praise and blame. So what is the point of talking about freedom at all? So if Kant does believe that the world, the empirical world, the world that we see and touch and feel and so on, this world, the world of science, it is causally determined, and therefore, if everything is determined, actions are determined, then there cannot be free action. There cannot be freedom. So why should we talk about freedom at all? Now Kant is, of course, not happy with this that he's not happy that his views can lead to this kind of a conclusion. He thinks that there is freedom, and he also thinks that there is determinism, there is causal determinism. Everything is caused by, everything is causally determined. So, what do we do? Now let us look at the most definitive statement by Kant of the position of causal determinism. Kant says, let us, all actions of men, I quote Kant, all actions of men in the field of appearance are determined in conformity with the order of nature. Order of nature is the spatio-temporal world, Prakriti, if you like, by their empirical character and by the other causes which cooperate with the character. And if we could exhaustively investigate all the appearance on man's will, then there would not be found a single human action which could not predict with certainty and recognize it as proceeding necessarily from its antecedent conditions. So far then, as regards this empirical character, there is no freedom. Yet, it is only in the light of this character that man can be studied. If, that is to say, we are simply observing and in the manner of anthropology seeking to institute a physiological investigation into the motive causes of his action. So this is his most definitive statement of the determinist empirical position. Now, it is extraordinary. A few passages later comes the Kant's famous statement about the malicious lie. He says, let us just suppose that we have successfully determined all the empirical causes which were the source of this action. The malicious lie of a person and whose lie causes kind of social, it impacts society in an undesirable way. That's what Kant would like to say. So this is malicious lie. Let us suppose that we have successfully determined all the empirical causes which were the source of this action. Defective education, that may be one cause, because he's told this malicious lie. Bad company, that may be another cause. Insensitiveness to shame, and so on. And we would naturally come to the conclusion that the action is empirically determined. But although we believe that the action is so determined, we must nonetheless blame the person or hold him responsible. How? Our blame, Kant says, is based on a law of reason. Now that's very important. I think we are all, I think in contemporary modern philosophy, this distinction between reason, cause and reason. And Kant was the first one to talk about the causality of reason. He talks about causality of reason, but people, philosophers, last century, this century, they also talk about reason, but they desist from talking about the causality of reason. Cause has nothing to do with reason, as it were. So Kant says that irrespective of all empirically determining conditions could have determined and ought to have determined the agent to act otherwise. That is reason. Reason as a cause. The causality of reason is complete in itself. That's what Kant says. Even when the empirical impulse do not favor but are strictly opposed to it. The action is ascribed to the agent's intelligible character. That's another important Kantian kind of introduction of a Kantian notion, intelligible. Intelligible character in the moment he utters the lie. The guilt is entirely his. Reason, irrespective of all empirical conditions of the act, is completely free. So, on the one hand, we have determinism, there is no freedom at all, but in spite of the fact that everything can be determined, they can determine any action that I do, in spite of that, my action is free because it is caused not just by empirical conditions, but by reason. So reason is the cause. Reason is outside the empirical conditions. Now, how? Now, let us think of examples of reason. as opposed to cause. And for instance, say I came in my car accompanied by two friends of mine because I don't trust my physical capacities. I do trust them, but coming as far as this, I'm somewhat skeptical about my physical capacity. So I have two friends of mine coming with me in my car. So I come here for a reason. What is the reason? The reason is, whether I like it or not, to give the keynote address in a Kant seminar. Now, that's the reason I come. And of course, everything else is causally determined. I come in the car, it's my body, and I'm put in the car, and everything else is causally determined. So the reason that I come here to give the keynote address, this is not causal, this is the reason. And this has no causal determination in this world. This is outside this world, as it were. How come? I mean, this is what Kant says. All actions, whether they are causally determined or not, can be caused by reason. This is what Kant says. Reason causes non-empirically, non-temporally. Morality or immorality of an action is non-relative to empirical temporal contingencies. This will remind us of some things that people in our century or a century before us, before this, say. I'll come to it. They are therefore in Wittgenstein, I've just taken the name, Wittgenstein's word, absolute. They are not determined by anything. They are not relative to any contingencies in this empirical world. If they are not relative to any contingencies in this empirical world, then they are not relative, therefore they are absolute. So reasons are absolute. In our contemporary way of thinking, we may, for instance, be regarded as immoral if there are no attenuating empirical circumstances, and my morality espouses, as it were, unscathed if there are attenuating circumstances. This is our view. This is the view of our justice system. If there are attenuating circumstances in this empirically conditioned world, if there are attenuating circumstances, then we act freely. If not, we do not act freely. And therefore, the morality, immorality is not involved when our actions are determined, when we not act freely. But so, this is our contemporary view. But Kant says, no, whatever we do, it is empirically determined. There are no attenuating circumstances empirically, but we are still free. And this freedom is non-contingently determined. That's very, very, very extremely interesting. Now, in recent times, quite recent times, last century, end of last century, a fairly distinguished philosopher of our times, a man called Peter Strawson, wrote a very popularly acknowledged piece, philosophical piece, called Freedom and Resentment. And he he tries to make clear the circumstances under which we can talk about freedom and circumstances under which we should not talk about freedom. So freedom and resentment, he says there are two kinds of attitudes that we can take to people. One is the reactive attitude and the other is the objective attitude. When we take the reactive attitude, then it is appropriate, we think it is appropriate for us to say he's responsible for it, he's accountable for it, he or she is accountable for it. And when we take the objective attitude, we say that no, we must resist from holding him responsible or accountable for it. Now, this is, for instance, there are all kinds of instances that I can think of. I travel by bus. I don't travel nowadays, but I used to travel by bus. And then, occasionally, of course, I used to get pushed. And when I get pushed, I step on somebody's foot. And then, if somebody says, hey, terrible thing you have done, you stepped on my foot, you shouldn't. And he can go further, and he can, do this and so on. But then, if I am stepped on my foot by somebody, supposing I'm a very reasonable kind of person, I would say, oh, somebody stepped on my foot. Is it because he was pushed? Or is it because he deliberately stepped on my foot because he holds something against me? So I then find out that he was actually pushed. Then I take what? I take an objective attitude to it. I don't blame it for it. So he couldn't help it. That's an attenuating circumstance. If, on the other hand, I think that he did it deliberately, I take the reactive attitude. I think he is blameworthy for it. I hold him accountable for it. So, now, it's very interesting, and I think it follows from this, that you see, there are cases, general cases, where it would be okay to take an objective view, general objective view. What are cases? Very, very young kind of child, infant. You cannot take the reactive attitude to what he does. You take only the objective attitude. And, for instance, mentally deranged persons who have not grown mentally, who suffer from severe mental stress, and so on. We take the objective attitude in these cases. We don't praise or blame them. These are also cases where, corresponding to our withdrawal of the reactive attitude, we also refrain from making judgments of accountability and responsibility. The most humane attitude, that's what Strawson says, the most humane attitude in such cases would be the one expressed in our regarding them as suitable cases of treatment. These are suitable cases of treatment, not suitable cases of moral accountability. It would seem that since Kant's theory, since on Kant's theory, the exercise of freedom is indiscriminately universal. I can be completely, totally determined empirically by causality, and yet I'm free. So it is indiscriminately universal, no matter how causality works. It has no room for the division marked by Strawson's distinction between the reactive and objective attitude. It seems as though, according to Kant, reactive attitudes must be as universal as the objective attitudes. On the other hand, if we allow any restrictions on the range of applicability of the reactive attitudes, this could only be the basis of our being able to determine the extent of the exercise of freedom. And we have no conception of how to do this. We don't know how to do this. Kant claims the real morality of actions remains entirely hidden from us. Our imputations can refer only to the empirical character. How much of the character is ascribable to the pure effect of freedom and how much to our nature can never be determined. This is Kant. 2 or 3 pages after that. That was 575, I think. This is 579. B. That is the second edition. How much of this character is ascribable to the pure effect of freedom and how much to our nature can never be determined. And upon it, therefore, no perfectly just judgments can be passed. It may be thought that the situation can be somewhat ameliorated by looking at not the possibility of the absolute application of praise and blame, but Kant's account of how it is possible for me to act at all. What is it for me to be an agent at all? Insofar as I am an agent, that is, I am an acting being, I am not at the same time an object of observation to myself. Very earlier on, B158, Kant says there is a passage as difficult as any passage in Kant, a footnote to this passage. I shall not therefore quote this passage, which has been interpreted by a recent Kant scholar as follows. A recent Kant scholar is Bell. What it claims is that I have a use for the term I, or a place for myself in my conceptual scheme, which does not involve my being a datum or an observed object, which is associated with my role as an agent. Then, this is a quote from this person, although I can treat myself as a datum, observing myself in order to discover facts about my correct state in practical deliberation, I typically do not do this. I simply am myself, and I confront the world where my practical problem arises. So Kant's theory does perhaps leave room for the notion of oneself as a noumenon, or at any rate as something given in experience. But I don't take this argument very seriously. But, for example, a footballer, he plays football. This is voluntary action. He plays football. And does he at any point of time stop? Not stop, and mentally stop and say, what am I doing now? Should I do this or should I do that? And then go ahead and do this. I don't think this happens. He does everything, certainly responsibly, but at the same time, he doesn't catch himself at the point where he says, do this. So he does not catch himself as an agent, empirically as an agent. I don't know if I'm right in this or not, but anyway, this is what this Kant scholar says. But I said I don't think very much of this. This, I think, is a singular empiricist attempt at being somewhat nice to Kant. Kant himself is quite clear about what he wants to say. Freedom in this sense is a pure, this is Kant again, pure transcendental idea, which in the first place contains nothing borrowed from experience, and which secondly refers to an object that cannot be determined or given in any experience. So this transcendent, you see, the transcendental world, the world that transcends this world, is not, I have no access to it, except that I must say that there are certain things that happen there which make things happen here. Now, how this happens, Kant himself says, is not clear at all. He doesn't know how it happens. So, Kant's discomfort about our inability to determine how free we are remains very, very serious. Now, in the next 5 minutes, I want to look at very briefly another way of accounting for morality and his connection with freedom. But before that, 2 ways, not one, but 2 ways. But before that, let me just mention Wittgenstein's discomfort with his conviction that the quality of goodness is absolute. Now, Wittgenstein has a very, very small piece of work called the Lecture on Ethics. It is actually a lecture. He wrote it down. He wrote nothing down for a lecture. He wrote this lecture down and he read it out as a lecture on ethics to a non-philosophical audience, primarily non-philosophical audience. Now, here he says moral goodness is not relative. It cannot be limited by any empirical contingency, any circumstance of our world. One of Wittgenstein's examples is that of absolute safety. That's what I'm totally unafraid. I'm absolutely safe. That is the moral stance that I can take about myself. And he says, somebody may feel absolutely safe. To say that he feels he's absolutely safe is to say that nothing that happens in this world, nothing that can be imagined to be happening in this world can do me any harm. Now, are there such people? Wittgenstein thinks there are such people who feel absolutely safe from anything in this world. So, is therefore, Wittgenstein says, at some point he's a kind of empiricist in, this bounds of sense. Bounds of sense, the world I observe is the world that is also determines the bounds of sense and nonsense. So he says, if nothing at all can determine whether or not, nothing at all that happens in the world can determine whether I'm absolutely safe or not, then I feel absolutely safe is nonsensical or unintelligible because it is outside this world. It is not inside this world. Is unintelligible. But for Wittgenstein, the person who says this with utter honesty deserves his profoundest respect. This is what he says. The unintelligibility of statements about absolute moral quality is also, Wittgenstein says, the heart of the religious, the essence of the religious. It is the home of the mystical. Now that is Wittgenstein. Not many people know about this aspect of Wittgenstein, but many things that he has written and he has talked and conversations and so on can lead to this kind of a conclusion. But in the lecture on ethics, he's quite clear about this. So, the other is, I said 2. One is Freud. Now, Freud also, quite interesting. Freud didn't know anything much about Kant. He didn't do philosophy in the way that Kant did, but his work has great philosophical significance. But he also believed that everything we do is causally determined. There are impulses, there are desires, which are great powers of causal impact on us. And now, he says that there are causal powers within us. We remember, we recognize them as causal powers, desires, uncomfortable desires, undesirable desires. And these desires we have, we feel in our conscious mind, these desires. And these desires, we don't, you see, they're uncomfortable primarily because they are uncomfortable because it is difficult to have them. They are so powerful. And also because they are not accepted by society. So they are undesirable. They are not accepted by society. Now, what do I do with them? Because acceptance by society is very important to me. That is another great power of causal power. So, in a tone between the two, I suppress these undesirable desires into a place where I'm not conscious of them anymore. But these undesirable desires they are powerful forces, they remain powerful forces. I have suppressed them into an arena in my mind where the consciousness does not penetrate, but nonetheless they want to surface. Because they are powerful, they want to surface into my consciousness. They surface in my dreams, and they surface in my neurotic behavior. And they make life absolutely miserable for me. So what do? I go to Freud. Freud says, you sit down, I analyze you, and then he interprets my dreams and interprets my neurotic behavior. He says, all this is because your undesirable desires are coming forth and you don't recognize them. It is best for you to recognize them. It is best for you to be conscious of them. And if you're conscious of them, then you have acquired certain kind of freedom in this world, where you are aware of them, and then you have to deal with them. And you deal with them in terms of the powerful norms of the community around you. And as long as you are able to do this, as long as you become aware of the possibility of living with these powerful desires, and yet, squaring them with the norms of the world around you, then you can live a more or less kind of free life. This is the very limited sense of freedom that human beings can enjoy. And you have, but there is another kind of freedom which Freud recognizes but doesn't talk very much about, which is that you can kind of, the word he uses is sublimate them, sublimate these powerful desires. You sublimate them in tremendous works of art, in a great novel that you write, in paintings, in poetry, and so on. So this is Freud. So Freud also, like Kant, he thinks, well, there is determination, there is determinism, but awareness of determinism and your ability to kind of address them in some way, not again in the determinist way perhaps, but address them, then you acquire some kind of freedom. Now, the next one I want to talk about is what the Vice Chancellor said about the Gita. Now, and this I say is beyond the contemporary, beyond the future, beyond the past as well. It is kind of timeless. The absoluteness of the moral that I mentioned in the center is the central Gita concept of niskama karma. This is also the absolutist account of the moral. Niskama karma is an action done in total detachment from the benefits that may ensue. Mahaphaleshu. Benefits, ensue from it. It may be said that my action may be niskama if it is meant for the benefits. It may be said that I can do niskama karma. Yes, I don't care about the benefits that ensue from that. For me, I reject them. I'm detached from them, but nonetheless, I can act in such a way that it does benefit others, not me. How come? Now, Gita said, now this is a kind of somewhat dubious idea. Gita says that it is possible for me to be totally deceived about the fact that even such acts do, in fact, ensue in benefit to me. Think of politics. The most honest of politicians, he does things for others and thinks that, well, it is totally unselfish. But it is quite possible that it is not unselfish at all. And it may be difficult sometimes to kind of separate the selfish from the unselfish. But anyway, for Gita, it says, therefore, niskama karma, eventually, it has to be such that this is totally disentangled from the empirical, from the causal nexus, empirical, causal, prakritic causal nexus of the world. Totally and total detachment from it. And when I don't know how many of us can do this, but Gita thinks that there are people who can do this. And if you are established in this niskama karma, when you do it kind of, if I say automatically, spontaneously, you are established in niskama karma, then it is possible then for you, I'll do it in 1 minute, 2 minutes. It's possible for you to get a glimpse of the other world, of the mystical world, of the world beyond the prakritic world. Prakriti and Purusha, of course, are together, but you can go beyond the prakritic world into the world of the Purusha. And this, one might say, is also the beginning of one's merger into this, into the yogic awareness. This is not the end of one's life in the physical world. That is also important. It is quite compatible with the mystical merger with the absolute. It is clear that for both Wittgenstein, I'm forgetting Freud here, both Wittgenstein and the Gita, morality is deeply connected with the spiritual or the religious. It is not clear that Kant was. Thank you very much.
Professor Miri, for that deeply engaging and thought-provoking lecture. Now I request Honorable Professor Enakshi Mitra to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
To Kant, from an outside position, from the position of a scientist, from the field of technology, from the field of administration, from the field of university administration, to make this assimilation, I thank Professor Mrinal Miri for really attuning us to the subsequent sessions, and the way he privileges Kant's treatment of freedom in a very, very novel and original way. I also thank Professor Nirmalya Narayan Chakravarti to come in a very opportune time and to and to make this whole session a success. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. This concludes the inaugural session. May I now request everyone to kindly rise for the national anthem?
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you all. I extend my sincere gratitude to all the dignitaries and the audience for their gracious presence. We have arranged for morning tea in room number 12. So I request all of you to proceed to room number 12 now. Thank you.